So Susan, it's 6 o'clock. Do we want to go ahead and get started, or we want to give team members another few minutes to join? Or Patrice, I think Patrice is there.
I'm sorry,
here.
Chairman, I'm here.
Okay.
I'm showing a couple of minutes till, although my machine says 6 o'clock. Patrice, are we expecting some more folks?
Well, all of the staff is here, and let's see, we're missing Larry Tony. It seems we don't have Miss Ruth. So we're missing those two individuals.
Did you expect them?
We only had a couple of RSVPs, and I don't think they were included in those RSVPs.
Okay. Chairman, it's up to you. We can convene if you want to do that and get this done, or we can come back another day and train everybody, or we can train those two on another day, which is what we'll do if you go forward.
Okay, well, in the interest of time, and as everyone has joined the call, let's go ahead and get started. I do know, and I was going to take a moment of silence for Larry Tony. He did have death in his family. His brother passed this past weekend, so he may be involved with some of the planning activities for those services. So I did want to recognize Larry for that, and just wanted to take a moment of silence for his brother's passing. Okay, thank you. All right, with that said, I think the next order of business is roll call. Maya?
Thank you. So I'm just going to do a brief call to see, roll call to see who we have. And if you could unmute yourself when I call your name and just let us know that you're here. Martin Raxton.
Present.
Keith Burnett.
Present.
Faye Dobbs. I see Faye. I'm going to unmute her.
That's it. Okay. Thank you.
Tell him Ruth is here.
Yeah.
Okay, Faye.
Hi. Thank you very much. And Miss Morgan is here too. Ruth is here too.
But I can't. You can't hear me. They muted, and I can't unmute it.
Okay.
Do you have Miss Morgan on mute?
No, we can hear her from her audio is connecting.
Okay.
What she said?
She can hear you.
You can hear me?
Yeah.
We can hear you from Faye's phone.
Okay.
Okay. April Streetman. It looks like April's audio is connecting as well.
Okay, she's calling me as well, so let me see. Hi, this is Martin. Hey, April.
Okay, and Miss Ruth Morgan. So we see Miss Ruth. We have Miss Patrice Williams.
I'm here, Maya.
Susan Littlefield.
I'm here.
Chelsey Jackson.
Present.
And Mr. Marcus Thompson.
Here.
Larry Tony. And as Chairman Maxson said, I don't think Larry Tony is here.
Maya, quick question for you.
Yes, sir.
Is there also an audio opportunity? I have April on the phone and she could see us but can't hear us. Is there a dial-in number that she could use?
Yes, so if she goes to her email, I can re-forward her the email and there's a dial-in number, so I can get her situated.
Okay. Okay, so April, they're gonna go ahead and they're gonna resend the dial. Okay, thank you, Maya. All right, so April will be dialing in a minute there, and I know we have the list here of our agenda for tonight. So it looks like we have a new team member, or one that I have not had the opportunity to meet, and that is Chelsey Jackson, who's the Assistant City Manager. So Chelsey, if you're available, if you could go ahead and unmute and If you could give us a quick introduction and just any type of background information you would like to share with us, we'd greatly appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Nice to formally meet you, even though it's not in person, and nice to meet everyone on the Planning Commission as well. I'll be going over some of the virtual meeting tips and trainings that we've given mayor and council over the past 2 months, just to ensure that all the training and all the meetings that we have are the same and cohesive throughout the city of Douglasville. At any time, please feel free to stop me, or at the end, stop me, and we can go over and I can answer any questions that you all may have. The point of this is to make it as easy as possible for you all. We know this, during coronavirus and having everything during this time to make it virtual has been pretty tough on everyone. So we just want to make it easier on the commission members. So as you all know, due to COVID-19, many governments have resulted in being innovative as it relates to meeting ideas, mostly virtual, but within social distancing guidelines. The City of Douglasville Planning Commission will meet and follow the same standard procedures as the city council meetings and work sessions in order to ensure the meeting is done in the same format. Since the present meeting and the scheduled Planning Commission meeting for June 2nd will be virtual with multiple people, please ensure that if you are speaking, that you speak clearly and through your mic, and if you're not speaking, that you remain muted throughout the time. If there are multiple noises while the chair or staff is speaking, the moderator will automatically mute you. Be advised, this meeting is a public meeting and viewers are unable to hear you if there are multiple noise distractions. And as Mr. Chair stated earlier, as I will reiterate, this meeting will be via YouTube and we are getting a little feedback, so I'll ask Maya to mute everyone. Thank you. As it relates to the agenda items, it is important that there are no formal discussions as it relates to any agenda items before the meeting is convened. This meeting is being recorded via YouTube so the public can hear any other conversations being held at that time. For agenda items without a public hearing, the chair will read the item and after call for a motion. The person making a motion must also state their first and last name, and also the person making a second must also state their first and last name for the record as well. For example, if I was going to make a motion, I would say I, Jane Doe, make a motion to approve item number, and then the person seconding the motion will say I, John Doe, second this item. Therefore, with the record and with this being recorded and on YouTube, everyone in the audience knows who's making the motion as well as the second to the item. The vote will be by a voice vote and done one by one to ensure that everyone's vote is done and recorded one by one. For items with the public hearing, the Community Development Director, Ms. Patrice Williams, will speak first. Then the chair will defer to myself and I will state the speaker's first and last name and allow them to begin speaking, and they will proceed with their comments. In order for an individual to speak during this virtual meeting,
I'm here.
in order for an individual to speak during this virtual meeting, they must first submit a speaker sign-in form prior to the meeting. No forms will be accepted after the meeting is convened. Once their item has been addressed, the applicant will be automatically dropped from the call, but they can review the remaining items and the meeting agenda on the city's YouTube channel at mycitytv.com. This procedure is done to ensure there are only individuals on the call who will be addressing any and all agenda items and to ensure the meeting is conducted in a professional manner. The amount of time for applicants will remain the same as well as the procedure. The chair will call for a motion and second, any discussion, and if the matter is not tabled, there will be a vote to recommend approval or denial of the application. The votes will also be done by voice votes one by one during the public hearing items as well. The chair will call each member's name one by one, and the individual will vote in favor, against, or abstain. At any point, Mr. Chair, please not hesitate to call on myself or any staff person for clarification. And due to the circumstances of the public health emergency, we will ensure that the virtual meeting is managed and as easy as possible for you as well as everyone on the commission. Are there any questions regarding the protocol for the upcoming meeting on June 2nd?
Yes, this is Martin. Quick question. I know that when I looked at the agenda for June 2nd, we have you kind of setting the standards or going through the procedures. Is this the same procedures you're going to be reviewing in the meeting on the, is that June 2nd?
Yes, sir. This would be the same procedures that I would go through during that meeting as well.
Okay. And then I guess as a follow-up question, to recognize individuals from the public, I just want to kind of walk through what that process looks like, or how's that flow for other boards and other commissions utilizing Zoom?
As it relates to any boards for the city of Douglasville, they're utilized the same way. I have become a buffer. I am kind of the city liaison for all boards, so I do help with many of the boards. So therefore, what has been happening is we do send them the call-in information for them to be an attendee. And once it's their turn or their item, at that time, I will pull them from the virtual waiting room and then allow them to speak. Therefore, I don't know if you all have heard or therefore in the news have seen what they call Zoom bombs, or seen individuals that will automatically hack a virtual meeting. So in order to ensure that we're not doing that, we have these individuals that will be attendees. They will be placed in a waiting room, and I will pull them from the virtual waiting room into the actual meeting. Once they speak on their item, and once we move to another item that's not theirs, I will automatically remove them from the call to prevent them from being able to speak at any other time during the meeting.
Okay, so that helps. So at the point in time where we need public comment, then it looks like I will be corresponding with you directly. And then at that point, you'll bring individuals in to do their speak or presentation, and we'll just got to coordinate that. Sure, through by the time we get through June 2nd, we'll be pros at it.
Yes, sir. Once you read the item, if you just you'll say my name, and then therefore Ms. Williams will speak afterwards, and then I will also allow the individual to come in as well. So usually how Mayor Robinson has been doing is after every public hearing, after the chair reads the item, she will call my name, ask if there's anyone to speak for or against the public hearing. From there, I'll call on one staff person to discuss the actual item, and then I'll call on the actual attendee or the applicant to actually speak.
Okay, understood. I guess the only other question I have is for signatures, and how are we going about if there's documents such as meeting minutes or things that require a physical signature, how's that being handled?
The city council has done theirs many different ways. For the past round of meetings, what they did e-signatures. We sent out an e-signature of everything they needed to sign. They signed it within minutes, and it was forwarded back over to staff. If you all are comfortable with that, and as well as I'll have to consult with Ms. Littlefield as well, then we could do e-signatures, or one other time, Mayor and Council did come to City Hall and actually sign the documents as well.
Okay. I know I'm personally comfortable with e-signatures, but I'll allow the other board members to speak if they're also comfortable with that. Or if there's anyone that has an objection.
Hey, Chelsey, I have a question. Just to clarify, I am okay with e-signatures as well, as the chairman said, but will the public comments be video or just audio, or both?
So we usually allow the public comment to be video, so you'll be able to see them.
Okay, thank you.
Well, as a pile on to that question, if there is some public comments where they're not able to utilize the video or don't have video for whatever reason capacity, but they're on audio, how's that been managed?
It's managed the same way. Once they call in, or I'll rewind a little bit. So in order for someone to speak, they do have to fill out a speaker comment card. Once they submit the speaker comment card, it comes to myself, to Ms. Maya Jackson, as well as Ms. Patrice Williams. Okay. We then load their information into Zoom. So we have all their call-in information and whatnot. So once they call in, then we assign their name to the actual telephone number. So when they're speaking on My City TV or on the YouTube channel, it shows their name going across the actual screen instead of their actual face.
Okay, understood. All right, thank you. Are there any other questions or comments?
I do have a question, Chairman Raxton, but I would just like to announce Mr. Larry Tony is on the line, and we also have Mr. Brian Anderson, our zoning administrator.
All right, thank you. Good evening to both. All right, Chelsey, is there any other instructions that you would like to present to us at this time?
No, sir, not for Tuesday's meeting, but if you all have any other questions, feel free to contact me. Ms. Williams and Ms. Jackson, they do have my contact information, so I can provide one-on-one trainings for you all. But as I said, we want to make it as simple as possible. So therefore, staff is doing a lot of the lead work, a lot of the things that you don't actually see. So I'm here anytime to discuss anything further if after this call you do have any follow-up questions.
All right, and can you provide us with your contact information, please?
Yes, sir. I can be contacted. Just Douglasville City Hall. Phone number is 770-920-3000.
Okay. All right. Any other questions from the board? All right, Ms. Jackson, thank you for those instructions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, at this time, we'll turn the meeting over to Susan Littlefield, who will take us through staff presentation on the UDO.
Excuse me. Oh, can you take me off mute?
Okay, no, that's so fun.
Are we good now?
Are we ready?
Yes. Can you hear me,
Okay.
Chairman?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Okay, good. Let me start by saying glad to see you all. Glad to see you all back, and no one has died from the pandemic. I'm glad to see that. I'm going to talk generally tonight on some subjects, and they all relate in some way to the UDO. I do not expect to get into the specifics of the zones and the districts and what's allowed in each and the gritty details of that. I think that if you need training on that, then Patrice and I will look into that. That's more her bailiwick than mine, but I'm going to talk about administrative matters and policy matters and trends and changes and things like that, and a couple of other matters that are outside UDO but are still within your responsibility. I think I'll start generally by saying that we're glad to work with you folks, and the mayor and council intend for us to be co-workers and to work together as smoothly as we can to promote their policies and to do their job. Some of you went on the commission for a while, and at least one of you is very new. So I'll tell you that I believe that the mayor and council see your role as fleshing out these new requests. You're the very first person, very first group usually to see new applications for a new business or some other new endeavor that's coming our way. And I think the council intends for you all to find out exactly what the applicant wants to do as much as you can, because so often these applicants want to do some sort of use, and they'll tell the staff one thing, and strangely enough, when they get to council or to you, they say something slightly different. So it's very important that we do ask the questions that you ask. You also serve the function, I think, of educating the public on what they're going to see when they get to the council meeting. And probably the most important function I think you serve is to find out for the council whether there are controversial issues that council needs to prepare for before those applications get to the council meeting. And I think in that way, they expect you to work with us as co-workers. We're both paid by the mayor and council and the city, and we need to work together smoothly. Now, in that capacity, you do a certain amount of research. You read the paperwork we give you. Maybe some of you even visit the locations, but you may also need to do some research from time to time. And when you need to do that, if you will let us know, we can refer you to the city archives, which are online, and it can show you how the council has voted on everything within the last 20 years. It's pretty easy to use, and I use it all the time. So if you need that, do let us know. We'll let you know how to get there, and you can see what you need. My role, I think, is to help you comply with the UDO and with state law, and also to eliminate any ambiguity in what you're trying to formulate the policy that you want to put forward so that everyone can understand it. Now, you won't hear me telling you how you ought to vote to approve or disapprove unless there's some legal principle at stake there, because that's not my job. However, the director has a different role than either of us. It's sort of a combination, and that's new to her, her position here in the city, although it's not new to directors everywhere. She has to handle policy and make recommendations, and she also has an administrative function as well. So the reason for that, you may know that up until a year or so ago, our directors didn't make recommendations for approval or denial or say very much about the merits of the cases. But when we rewrote the UDO, that's what they wanted the director to do. Now she will give a brief factual summary and usually a recommendation on every case that the council hears. You don't have to take her recommendation. You are a policymaker too, but she's always got to give that. And she's also responsible administratively for how your meeting runs as well. So you'll continue to hear from her on that. That's part of her job. I'm going to talk just a little bit now about the UDO. And I did send out some written materials. I hope you have those. And we're going to talk just a little bit about those. I think the first point I want to make is that the UDO sets out the criteria that you're supposed to consider when you're considering a rezoning and a special land use permit. And you don't want to stray too far from that when you ask questions of your applicants. Every question you ask needs to relate in some way to that criteria that's in section 1208. The questions that are in there. And also when they make their application, they fill out a questionnaire about how it fits the criteria. And those are questions you ought to consider too. There are a few times when we can get a little bit away from the general subject. And I want to point those out to you so maybe you can avoid them in the future. I will say one thing that you should probably never write on your comment sheet is your personal feelings about the applicant or the people involved. Some of these folks can be very difficult to deal with and not very pleasant to be with, but we just don't say it. Just do your best. But also we need to stay off the topic of licensing, such as licensing for in-care homes or alcohol licenses. Those are things that will come later, and licenses are also specific to a particular owner or a developer. Now, while we may want to know what this owner or developer intends to do, at the end of the day, he's asking for a land use, and he may just turn that over to the next person and sell that property just right away. So you don't want to make it too specific to any one person, even though they're the applicant. And again, I know you must have sometimes concerns about state and county permits and building permits and whether variances are needed, but those are all things that will come later in the development process. Zoning is the very first part of that process, and you need to assume that they will be able to get what they need later with regard to that, and don't be too concerned about those kinds of things. You'll also see in the UDO that we have set out the basics for your public hearings. Now, what we have done in the UDO is to quote the statute that says you'll give 10 to 20 minutes per side and it has to be the same amount per side. I don't think y'all are having any trouble with that. And I'll just say that the council usually does 5 minutes per person, but it's not required in your ordinance. And the chair can extend that time. And I think y'all are doing all right there, but should you need to make your business more brief, you can cut it to 20 minutes per side on each case. You can now table your cases only to the next regular meeting. That's to move them along a little faster. That had been the law in the previous zoning ordinance, and we know that this will move business along. I know it's a difficult thing sometimes to decide whether you need more information or whether it's better to move things forward so that the council can rule on it and the applicant can get their business done. But if you can't do it in 2 meetings, you probably can't do it. So anyway, that's the rule. The council also has limits on its tabling time as well. It's not the same as yours, but they have some limits. When you all make a motion to approve, sometimes you say recommend to approve. Either way is fine. Since you're a recommending body only, you don't have to say recommend to approve, but it doesn't really matter. I do want to talk, though, about some difficulty we had earlier in the year with a failed motion to approve. In zoning matters under the UDO, a failed motion to approve results in a denial without any further action. That's the rule for you folks, and it's the rule for the council. And in fact, it's been in our zoning ordinance since about 1999. The reason for that is to let cases move forward when there's difficulty with the case such that you can't get a vote one way or another, or there's some sort of tie vote. So anyway, I'm sorry I was absent that day, but that's what happened in that case. A failed motion is when there's a motion to approve, but nobody seconds it, or you get a second, but it's not approved. But that's what happens with a failed motion to approve. It's an automatic denial. Now, a motion to deny that fails is a nullity. Nothing happens with that, and another motion is in order if there's a failed motion to deny. And that's what your UDO says, and you'll see that in the materials that I sent. I'm going to talk a little bit now about the feedback that we've gotten from the mayor and council at their last retreat and at various other times. They're interested in having tight control over some of the public hearings that we've gotten on more controversial matters. And I've talked with the chairman already. He's doing a good job, but he's going to be reciting some of the things that the council recites in their opening as well, to keep folks a little bit more in order and talking one at a time, and basically showing the same decorum that they're going to show to the council when they get there, because you folks deserve it, and certainly the council deserves it, and we all deserve that. But these folks get really excited when they think somebody's going to move a business they don't want near their home, and they don't always remember their manners, but I hope you can help them with that. I know that sometimes in the past, the information you've gotten from Patrice's department sometimes has felt like it was not all that you wanted to see. Be assured that Patrice's folks are checking those applications for completeness when they get them, and they don't let them go forward unless they are complete. And by complete, what I mean is they've checked off everything on the checklist for the UDO. It may not be as much as you would like to see, but it's as much as the UDO requires. And I'll say too, for you folks who have been on the Planning Commission for a while, there has been a change, I think, in what the council is expecting from you with regard to what you do with the cases and how far you research them. I think a couple of years ago, maybe even longer ago than that, the council expected you folks to dive into every case and to treat it as though it was development specific, that we needed to see details from every developer about what they were doing and from every applicant, and that they wanted all kinds of information and studies in an early stage. We're not seeing that anymore. Now that the UDO has passed, we think that they have put into the UDO all their requirements that they want to see with regard to studies. So if you have a traffic study before you, it's probably because the UDO requires it. And the council is not interested in getting a traffic study or other kinds of studies in every zoning matter, unless it's required by the UDO. They probably don't want you to ask for it. Also, I think that they originally intended for us to look at every application as though we needed to know what was about to be built. But some smaller pieces of property that are just being rezoned by the owner or by a very small developer, they don't care about that anymore. Some really are spec rezonings with no particular development in mind, and yet the council will favor them when they come up for a vote. So keep that in mind as you're asking questions about cases. You only have 2 meetings to do it in, I know, but do the best you can with what you've got. Now, that doesn't mean you can't ask questions. Certainly you can ask questions. And you know, if there's something in particular you need for an applicant to produce, you can ask, but don't hold up the case asking for a study that is not required by the UDO. The council will want that to go forward. And then if they feel that it's absolutely necessary and they read what you write, they'll take it from there. Let me see, what else we got to talk about? Let me talk just a little bit about open meetings. We're here tonight in virtual form because the state law allows us to do that due to the emergency situation. But most of the time, you can only talk about city business as a quorum when you're in a meeting, and usually in an in-person meeting. So you have to be very careful to not discuss matters as a quorum outside that. I don't know if you folks are visiting sites or if you're visiting them as a group, but if you visit them as a group, please try not to talk about them. You can talk one-on-one, but as a quorum, you need to just wait until you are in the meeting. Also, you occasionally are going to have applicants contact you outside the meeting and want to talk with you about what a good project they've got. The law on that is that you can listen, you can talk, but you can't say how you're going to vote. I would rather you not meet with them outside or take any sort of outside information. The law on special land use permits in particular is changing right now. It's different than it was a year ago, and the courts are still fleshing that out, but they're starting to say words like you shouldn't hear anything outside the public hearing from any source. So talking with an applicant outside the meeting is really a risky sort of thing, and I would ask you not to do it, but I can't tell you that it's illegal. What's illegal is to say how you're going to vote to anyone until you have voted. I'll finish up by touching just on conflict of interest. I think you all do pretty well with conflict of interest. You know that you can't vote on anything where you have an interest in the property or in property that would compete with it. Now, you're here because you're a City of Douglasville resident, but if you own property within, say, 2 miles of a case that is before you, then you need to send a conflict of interest letter and recuse yourself from the case. Patrice can get you a conflict of interest form letter, and it will be given to the clerk of court. Or if Patrice is not available, the clerk of court, I'm saying clerk of court, city clerk is Vicky Acker. And she takes the conflict letters, and she's got the form, and she'd be glad to take care of you by email or in person. And you need to do that before the meeting starts as much as you can, and then not talk to anyone else on the commission about the case. But that's about all you need to know about conflict of interest. I've had a lot to say.
I have a question.
Sure.
This is Keith, you just going back on the conflict of interest, you said if we live within 2 miles of a application
You own
or
property.
land permit. Oh, you own property within 2 miles of the
Well,
applicant?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. But usually that's the same thing, but not always. Yeah. Or if for any other reason you feel like it's going to change the value of your property or impact it, you should conflict. Now, there's some strict rules about conflict of interest, but you're always welcome to conflict out just because there's the appearance of conflict. If you're uncomfortable with it, because it might affect your own personal interest or that of your immediate family, that's a good time to sign a conflict letter and conflict out. But whenever you conflict out, you need to conflict out totally, not halfway. Send the letter and then don't talk to anyone about it. Leave the room at the time of the vote and just don't have anything to do with that case. That answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
All right, thank you. Patrice, did you have anything that you wanted to comment on the matters that I discussed?
No, Susan, I think you did a great job covering some of the issues that have come up.
Yeah.
Hey, Susan, I got a question.
Yes, sir.
This is Larry. Timber Ridge. So a traffic study is, if it's not included in there, then it's not important for us to consider that on a 500 home development on a little 2-story road. I mean, 2-lane road.
Larry, I don't know. Did the UDO require a traffic study?
I don't have any idea, but I know we get to the meetings sometimes and we say, well, where's the traffic study? Well, we don't have one. And then we go, well, what about the school situation? Well, you know, we sent it over to them and we hadn't heard back yet. Well, what are these places going to look like? Well, we need that. I don't know. I just want to do whatever you guys, I'm like you. I thought the mayor and council wanted us to dig down and to pull all this information out for them. I just want to know. That's all I want to know.
So if I could speak on Timber Ridge, Mr. Tony, Timber Ridge was 2 parts. We had an office space and then the office medical space on one side, and then we had the residential on the other side.
Right.
If I'm not mistaken, the residential is what triggered the traffic study. So because it was zoned, we had 2 different items. The first item would have been the office space, I think. It did not trigger a traffic study. So one was not required for that piece, but there was a traffic study for the residential piece.
I'm just curious, what does trigger a traffic study?
Typically anything above 100 units for apartment developments triggers a traffic study. And Marcus Thompson, he's on the line as well. He can speak to it because he's the staffer that reviews the traffic studies, but typically it's over 100 units that trigger a traffic study.
If I remember correctly, and I'm old and I don't remember all that well sometimes, but if I remember, those 2 buildings were going to put something like 300 additional cars on that street. And that guy told me, he said, I asked him, I said, are you going to widen the road? And he told me, he said, well, we're going to put XL decel lanes in. And of course, what a big joke that is, to add 300 cars to a little 2 single road. So I don't know. I just want to do whatever you guys want us to do.
All right. Let me ask this, Susan. I just want to clarify. So based on what you said, and correct me if I'm wrong, whatever is presented from in our packets for consideration leading up to the meeting is what we should say has been checked, verified, and validated as meeting the requirements of the UDO, and that's enough information for us to make an informed decision. Is that what I understood?
What Patrice's department does when they receive an application is to check it against the checklist. They should not be bringing it to you unless everything on that checklist has been provided.
So if there's things on the checklist and they've validated that what's on the checklist is to be provided and has been brought forth in the packet that we are considering for per applicant. Is that what I'm understanding?
That's what they should send you, yes. Also, sometimes they send you other things as well. Sometimes they will send you explanatory information that's been provided. Sometimes they'll send you even studies that weren't required.
Okay. Well, I guess I asked because I think, we've had a very good precedent set of having good and just great quality of information and reports that we can make informed decisions on kind of future state, because what we're doing our voting on is future state. What is going to be the future impact of moving forward with developing or moving forward, approving a land use permit or et cetera there. So I think that's where some of the line of questions come in from, based on having that great quality of information, so we can kind of see forward thinking what is going to be the future for that particular that site or property there. So I say that to say, I think, it's great that we continue to get that level of information. And, I think that's why you see the level of questioning that comes from this body, because we're trying to be future thinking and forward thinking on what that outcome is going to be for that particular site.
Sure.
Susan, if I may, I don't want to beat a dead horse on this this conflict of interest, but why the 2 miles within ownership of land do we recuse ourselves? I'm curious.
Well, generally 2 miles is the realm within which the value of another property and what's done there might affect your value.
Okay. Thank you.
Right.
All right, other questions for Susan or Patrice?
Susan,
Hi,
I'm gonna beat that horse just a little bit more.
go ahead.
I hear that 2 miles, but just in the business that I do, 2 miles can be a long way. Like if it's across the interstate, 2 miles might not affect somebody else's property that is 2 miles away. So I was not aware that we needed to recluse ourselves when it was 2 miles, because I personally don't see how 2 miles always does affect the value of somebody else's property.
I think you're right, but sometimes 2 miles is not far enough.
True,
You
true.
know, if you live 2 miles from the quarry, you can still be interested in it. I'm going to leave that to your sound discretion then.
Thank you, Susan.
But I'm telling you that 2 miles is a good rule of thumb for to apply to all properties. But if you want to use some other rule, that sounds fine to me. If you believe it's going to affect the value of your own property, or it could, then certainly recuse yourself.
Well,
I will say that if you get within a half mile, there's probably not a court who's going to believe that it won't affect your value. So,
and I'll
keep that
agree
in
with
mind.
that, Susan. I'm just thinking about me and like Larry Toney. I know where Larry Toney lives. He knows where I live. We could find something right in the middle, and then we both have to recuse ourselves, and that leaves very few left to vote.
Sure.
Thank you, Susan.
Any other questions to Susan or to Patrice related to the UDO? All right, Susan, any other thoughts or any other comments that you may have thought of since we started the Q&A session?
No, I think I'm good. Appreciate it, Mr. Chairman.
All right.
Just thank all of you for doing the job you do. The amount you're paid does not fully compensate you for that. I know it's a difficult job with a lot of competing interests, and I thank you for doing it.
Okay, you're welcome. So just one quick question. This may be for Patrice. I know we talked about writing and providing our input and kind of our feedback to council based on recommendations that we're making. How is that going to be handled moving forward, having the meetings virtual?
Well, we will send you a form. Typically, that's what we do for our other partners, WSA, the school board. They may not respond, but we do send them a form to fill out their comments. And so we will format something that will allow you to type, to submit your comments to us electronically. So you can send it to us during the meeting or immediately following the meeting, but we will ensure that you'll have a document that you can email it to us as soon as you're done with the items.
All right, thank you. All right, well, if there's no further questions to Susan, we'll go ahead and go to announcements. And at this time, we'll turn it back over to Patrice.
All right, well, I didn't get a chance to say hello to everyone, but I'm good seeing you all. I'm happy that you're all doing well. But I wanted to just make a couple announcements, make it short and sweet. We do have a new staff person you all haven't had a chance to meet. He joined us a little after 6, Ryan Anderson. He's our new zoning administrator, so he's on with us. Ryan, if you want to say hello, here's your chance.
Hello, everyone. I'm happy to be aboard. Thanks, Susan, for a great presentation. I learned a lot tonight, and I'm looking forward to working with each and every one of you. And have a nice evening.
Okay, but you'll see Ryan a little bit more come June, July, but he's our new zoning administrator. Also, another personnel matter, Maya Jackson, she was hired officially as a permanent employee. She's our planner 1 now. Maya graduated from Georgia State unceremoniously a few weeks ago, but we're happy to have her here at the city of Douglasville. She's been an awesome asset to the division. So but Maya is a permanent employee now.
Congratulations, Maya.
Great.
Thank you.
All right. And just to piggyback on Chelsey, to reiterate a couple of things, our next zoning meeting, our planning commission meeting is scheduled for June 2nd. That is a virtual meeting. So you'll see some information go out about that. It'll be another Zoom meeting. We'll take public comments, as Chelsey mentioned earlier. For the July 7th meeting, that will be, I think, quasi. So we'll be meeting in person, but we'll have it open to the public because I think at that point, we'll probably still be recognizing social distancing. So we'll probably be back in the auditorium, similar to how council, mayor and council are set up. They will be headed back to the auditorium this Thursday, and they'll be spread out. So you'll all be spread out as well. But we're working to fine tune that. As I always say, we typically follow the lead of mayor and council. So since they're going back in person, we'll be going back in person in July as well. We couldn't do it in June because we had to go ahead and advertise the meeting. But you'll be hearing more information about that as well. So just look out for your emails. We'll be keeping you in the loop as far as what's going on with the items. And I will say we've had a very busy 60+ days. We've had a number of pre-application meetings. So you'll be hearing more about apartments, senior housing as well, along with some warehouses. So while we were closed to the public, and we somewhat remain closed to the public in the annex, we were still continuing to work with developers. And so some familiar faces will be before you shortly. So we're really excited about what's in the pipe. Be it good or bad, we have a lot of work to do. So we're really excited about it. And that's all that I have.
Patrice, what was the date of July?
July 7th, the first
Okay,
Tuesday
thank
of the
you.
month.
All right, thank you. Well, Ryan, welcome to the team. We look forward to working with you. I think certainly you have a big task ahead of you, some big shoes to fill, but I'm sure that with Patrice, Susan, and Maya, They're going to make the transition very seamless. So we're looking forward to working with you and interfacing with you here with the city of Douglasville. So welcome.
Okay, thank you.
And Maya, certainly again, congratulations both on your graduation. Sorry that it had to be virtual or however it was performed, but hopefully it still met the same expectations of completing a major task in your life. And again, congratulations on officially being hired and brought aboard Plan 01 with the city of Douglasville.
Thank you.
All right. Well, are there any other questions or comments from the board this evening?
None from me.
All right. Well, I'd like to thank the team for putting this together. I think this was very helpful. I think it's always positive to get together and to have these touch points. So Patrice, thank you. Susan, thank you for putting this together. Job well done. And we're looking forward to our June 2nd virtual meeting.
All right, thank you.
All right. Well, if there's nothing else, we'll consider this training session adjourned and look forward to seeing everyone virtually June 2nd.
Thank you, Martin.
All right. Thank you. Have a good
Good night,
evening, everyone.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right.